Welcome to the next instalment of my Big Tips on the Big Board series. Today's communication tip is looking at ways to close our presentations with as much impact as possible. Now, to do that, the music artist today is Chris. You're probably thinking, Chris who? That is up to you, whether you want it to be Chris Brown, Chris Martin, it really doesn't matter. But Chris is the one who's helping us today. And we're going to go around in a circle for a bit of a change today, just as long as I can get that right. So Chris, there we go. So Chris is helping us out today because there's 5 ways that I want to help you to close your presentations impactfully. The first one is super simple, and it's to make sure you've got a really clear ending. And I talk a lot about the plane analogy when I talk about communicating and knowing where you're starting and knowing where you're landing. So for this one, make sure you know how you're going to wrap up your presentation. It could be when you're chairing meetings, communicating something to an audience. Just have a really clear ending, because it's going to stop you going off on a little bit of a tangent and just sort of drifting off as you finish the point that you want to make and wrap up your presentation. So really make sure you've got a clear ending and the audience knows that that's the end of your presentation. I was on a webinar recently where one of the speakers gave a great presentation, and actually there was a point we thought that they'd stopped and they were wrapping up, but actually they then went on to deliver another 10 minutes worth of content, which was good content, but it just made the audience feel that they were wrapping up, finishing up, and then another 10 minutes came and it took them by surprise. So really make sure there's a clear ending to your presentations. The next one is being sure to include details of how to contact you. I feel like that's a little bit of a cheap one with the H there, but how to get in touch with you. The reason why I say this and the reason why I think it's important is because there might have been a Q&A, but people might not have been able to get their questions answered, maybe time ran out, or people just want to follow up with you afterwards about the topic that you was talking about. Try to make sure you include some details on how they can get in contact with you. Especially on video, it's very different. We're not in person where people can just come up to us at the end, ask us a question they didn't want to ask in front of everyone. So on video especially, try to include details on how they can contact you after the presentation if they've got any questions or comments they wanted to get in touch about. The next one is to repeat your key points. Now, depending on the length of the presentation, you might have a few key points that you want to go back to when you finish. So this is really fresh in your audience's mind. You've done a nice summary at the end for them. So repeat your key points. If it's a shorter communication with an audience, it might just be the one key point to reflect on. But do make sure there's some sort of repetition of the key points towards the end of your presentation, so that's fresh in your audience's mind as well. It's a really good point and a really good way to make sure they're taking on board the key bits of information that you're giving them. Aside from that, or rather alongside that, I'd suggest planting or giving an idea at the end of your presentation so that your audience, you almost plant a seed, plant an idea in their minds so that your presentation is lingering a little bit beyond the 10 minutes, 30 minutes, hour that you've had with them. So it might be that you've got something that you want to leave the audience with. So you've repeated, you've wrapped up your key points. I'm just going to leave you with this point. And it gives them food for thought to make sure that your presentation is still lingering afterwards and they're still thinking about it and taking in what you've told them. So it's just an idea to leave with to make a lasting impression towards the end of your presentation. And the final one, and probably the most important one, is to just stop talking. How many times, and we've all done this, how many times have we seen people present or in meetings where they just drift off and there's no real ending to what they're saying? It's similar when people ask questions, they kind of struggle just to ask one clear question. We might go off on a tangent a little bit. So it relates to the clarity point at the start of being really clear with your ending, but also making sure that you are just stopping talking so the audience knows okay, great, I can log off, or I can get out of here now. The presentation has finished. Rather than lingering and drifting off, just stop the presentation. Trust yourself that you've said your last words and you've finished confidently, and then just stop talking. On video, I probably like to shut off my video, especially if people are invited then, like, thanks so much for listening. Free to get on with the rest of your day now. You know how to contact me. Look forward to speaking to you soon. Whatever it is, rehearse that last bit. Trust that you've said your last words, and you can then just stop talking. So those are the 5 tips to help you end your presentations with as much impact as possible. Be clear, know how to contact you, repeat your key points, maybe plant an idea or food for thought in their mind so they're still thinking about it afterwards, and more importantly, just stop talking. That is the big communication tip today, using the big board. If you found this video useful, check out even more ways to upgrade your impact by subscribing to my YouTube channel.